This program provides education, not advice. See the truthayf.com disclosure page for details.
This is where technology, innovation, and personal finance come together.
This is The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Brought to you by Global X ETFs, dedicated to providing investors with unexplored intelligent solutions, and by Invesco QQQ. Anyone can become an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ. Invesco Distributors, Inc.
It's Wednesday, April 19th. I want to talk with you about the Washington Commanders, and particularly its owner, Dan Snyder. Well, for as long as he's going to continue being the owner. Dan Snyder bought the Washington Redskins 24 years ago for $800 million. He's now selling the team for $6 billion. He's being forced to sell because pretty much everybody seems to hate this guy, the league, the other NFL owners, the team's players and staff, the fans. In 1999, when Snyder bought the team, the Redskins games were all sold out. There was a waiting list of 40,000 people. The team had the highest attendance in football. Today, the team is dead last in attendance. They've dropped from 91,000 people attending each game to 58,000. The Washington Post says Dan Snyder is a pariah, a symbol of greed and incompetence. The media say that Snyder is viewed by the Washington, D.C. business leaders and politicians as arrogant and focused on profits. They say he's a social and political embarrassment. Dan Snyder reportedly demands to be referred to as Mr. Snyder by team employees and others. Former employees have claimed he was extremely demanding and difficult to work for, that his insistence on being called Mr. Snyder was just one example of his overbearing management style. Let me just give you some ideas of the actions that Dan Snyder has engaged in during his ownership of the Washington Commanders. In 2005, Snyder built a fence around the stadium to prevent fans from parking for free in surrounding neighborhoods. By building this fence, they had no choice but to park in his parking lot, paying him fees for doing so. In 2008, Dan Snyder had the Redskins sue a retiree when she didn't renew her season tickets. She'd had the tickets for 50 years, but she couldn't afford them anymore. The Redskins sued her for breach of contract. The Redskins eventually dropped that lawsuit, and Snyder publicly apologized. In 2010, Dan Snyder sold tickets to new seats that he had installed in the upper deck of the stadium. But he didn't tell the fans who bought the tickets that their views of the field were obstructed by concrete columns. In 2011, Dan Snyder required that fans pay for their season tickets using a Redskins-branded credit card. The card came with high fees and interest rates. In 2013, Dan Snyder sold licenses to vendors so they could sell snacks outside the stadium. But then when patrons tried to bring those snacks inside, they were prohibited from doing so. They had to buy everything again. Snyder lives in Potomac, Maryland, in a mansion alongside the Potomac River. The land between his house and the river is public parkland, and the trees there blocked Snyder's view of the river. So in 2013, he asked county officials for permission to cut down the trees, and his request was denied. So he cut them down anyway, more than 130 trees. The public and environmental activists expressed outrage over the destruction of the trees and the potential damage to the local ecosystem. Snyder ended up getting fined $100,000, a pittance compared to his vast wealth, and he got the river views he wanted. In 2017, the team was sued by vendors who claimed that the team had failed to pay them for concessions and merchandise that were sold at the stadium. The vendors alleged that they were owed more than $500,000 in unpaid fees. In 2018, Dan Snyder began charging admission fees for fans to attend training camp. No team ever charged fans to go to training camp, but Dan Snyder began charging up to $35 a head plus $10 to park. In 2018, the team's former director of cheerleaders accused Dan Snyder of sexualizing the cheerleading squad. One former cheerleader filed a lawsuit alleging that she was forced to pose topless during a photo shoot. Also that year, Snyder was accused of failing to return security deposits to former employees and vendors. One former marketing executive sued the team for failing to return her $36,000 security deposit after she left her job. She also claimed that the team had engaged in other unethical and illegal practices, including underpaying employees and manipulating attendance figures to boost ticket sales. In 2019, the team was sued by a company that says the team failed to pay $650,000 for security services. In 2020, the Washington Post reported on allegations of sexual harassment and a toxic workplace. The report accused Dan Snyder of fostering a hostile work environment and failing to address complaints of misconduct by team officials. Also in 2020, more than 40 former cheerleaders filed a lawsuit against the team, alleging they had been underpaid and mistreated. Dan Snyder eventually changed the name from the Washington Redskins to the Washington Commanders, but without seeking any fan input. Fans widely hate the name, and they derisively call the team the Washington Commies. Under Dan Snyder's ownership, the team has lost nearly 60% of its games. It hasn't won a playoff game in nearly 20 years. And so Dan Snyder has failed both on the field and off the field. But he's won in his bank account. He's now a multi-billionaire. A hated and despised billionaire, but a billionaire nevertheless. Poor little rich boy. So the reason I'm citing all of this to you is that I want to make sure that the rest of us all learn a lesson from Dan Snyder. I want you to decide what really matters to you. If money is all you're after, be careful, because you just might get what you deserve. I say all of this because of a poll recently released a few weeks ago by the Wall Street Journal and the University of Chicago. I told you about this poll back on April 3rd. The link to that podcast is in the show notes for you. I told you then, I'll say it again here, that in that poll, only 38% say that patriotism, religion, community involvement, hard work, and having children are very important. But the majority say that what is more important than ever? Money. If you think money matters more than anything else, you and Dan Snyder have a lot in common. If you like what you hear on this podcast, leave a review for The Truth About Your Future on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and maybe I'll share yours on the air. And you'll also be helping others discover the show too. I'll see you tomorrow.
The Truth About Your Future is sponsored by Global X ETFs. Listeners of this program enjoy fresh perspectives on the financial topics that matter most, especially the rise of exponential technologies. And right now, there may be no faster-moving tech story than the rise of artificial intelligence. But despite some exciting new developments, like the launch of ChatGPT, we are only beginning to scratch the surface of AI's potential. So, which companies will have staying power? As an investor, it's hard to know, which is why Global X ETFs specializes in thematic investing strategies that harness the potential of numerous companies involved in an emerging trend, all in a single trade. Explore our investment approach along with our latest research on the emergence of AI at globalxetfs.com/insights.
Need help managing the complexity of income needs in retirement? Meet Schwab Intelligent Income, a simple, modern way to pay yourself from your portfolio. Tell them how much you need and how long you need it to last. They'll estimate how much you can spend. Plus, you can start, stop, or adjust payments anytime without penalty. And with Schwab Intelligent Portfolios, you won't pay an advisory fee. Visit schwab.com/intelligent income to learn more about their modern approach to wealth management.
The information you need to plan for the tomorrow you want.
This is The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.